Hello everyone, once again welcome to Farming in Africa. Today I'm not giving you a specific update about Semanhyia Farm and what is happening. I'm coming here to do what I love doing best, and that is education and what we actually stand for and the reason why we started our farm. And in the midst of all this, a lot of the things that most of you have said is, Fred, don't worry. In the midst of all this cloud, there's a silver line. So look towards that. And that's exactly what we are doing. But I also think in the midst of all this, there is also an opportunity for us to learn. And therefore today, I want to talk to you guys about, based on the comments you guys have shared with me, I want to pick one comment that continues and frequently comes out and share my opinion with you guys. So if you're interested in putting the drama aside and the pain, and we can still continue to live our life and learn, then stay tuned as we learn through this painful moment as well. Glad you guys sticked around. As I said, I think this is a way of releasing whatever emotions I'm going through. And I know I can't go on without giving you a quick update because the story is still unfolding. So the update is that there's no updates. We are still waiting on the chiefs and elders to come up with a decision. But as a businessman, as somebody that still want to continue doing what I'm doing, I'm also looking at other options. I'm preparing myself for whatever the outcome is and not folding my hands. So you guys are going to see a lot more update from us on what we are doing. There's the kind of discussions we are having in case we are relocating, where are we going, what is the work like. But I'm looking into the future. Most of you have said, you don't even look like somebody that is losing their investment. Yes, I might not look like that in your eyes, but I'm looking into the future. I'm looking at the possibility of we starting a farm together. If you wanted to start a goat farm, a cattle farm, whatever, this is exciting. Let's join hands together because I'm going to start one from scratch if I'm supposed to relocate. And that means that me putting a pole here, you putting a pole there, me fencing, you fencing, me doing this, you doing this. And for the first time, we can walk step by step through the journey together, so that after this, nobody will come to me and say, Fred, teach me how to build it anymore, because we will all build together and I'll share every knowledge with you guys. I want to pick a comment that most of you have been asking, which is, yes, you've been asked to relocate. What's the big deal? Take off the goats. You've actually sold most of your goats, so what's the big deal? Start with cattle, start with sheep, start with pig, or start with chicken. And I'm picking this comment because it's been very frequent. And in the midst of all this, with the pain, with the emotional, whatever I'm going through, I love to educate. So I want to use this opportunity to educate all of us, because I think it's a mistake we continue to repeat as farmers, as new farmers. It's like, why do we go into farming? It could be for so many reasons, but if you are writing that comment, then you should ask, why is Fred doing what he's doing? And if I'm recommending cattle for Fred, why am I recommending cattle? If I'm recommending pigs for Fred, why am I recommending pigs for Fred? Why should Fred use 6 acres of land to do cattle? I think there's a bit of thinking that needs to go into that. I know it's also coming from an emotion side of, you have the infrastructure and therefore use it for something. I feel it, but I also feel like if you don't use it for the right thing, you end up even spending more money. And then after 10 years, I'm going to come to you guys. You guys have seen the amount of mistakes I've made through this journey, the corners that I've gone to finally arrive at a place. And I put myself out there, and I'm vulnerable enough to share that with you guys because I want us to learn. If the people that started poultry in Doma years ago have been putting it out there like this, I don't think anybody will fail in poultry in Ghana. Right? So some of you come back to even attack me offline. oh, you did this and you didn't succeed, and then you went to do this, and you've created a character of me, not knowing that I actually intentionally do that for all our sake, for the sake of all of you farmers out there, right? So the question of use the facility, I would love to use the facility. Obviously, it's painful because maybe 90% of that investment cannot be paid. So definitely, we could use it for something. Let's take the cow for example. You guys know that I started with cattle farm and grew my cattle to about 250, 70 cows. There were so many. I had the 11 acres to move them on. Then I had the circle land to move them on, which is about 130. And I was like, what is the future? Because in the next 2-3 years, I'm going to have almost 1,000 cows. Where am I going to put them? My 130 acre even wasn't enough to feed my cows. So I realized the scalability process or journey is not visible for me in cattle farming, especially with the way that I wanted to do cattle farm and with the market price that exists in Ghana, right? So if you have cows and you are really doing it intensively and you don't have enough land to produce their food cheaply, then I don't know what market research you've done to make sure that that specific business is profitable. So in my case, it was more about seeing the growth in the future, right? And even if I had the capital to buy hectares of land, number one is I will have to talk to so many families to be able to agree to even sell that land to me. You might say, oh, maybe by the north you can get it. It was something about, okay, I have this here. Why do I want to go here? It will spread me very thin. So I realized that I couldn't scale with cattle, with this property, and with what I was doing here, right? And that's why I sold my cows and decided, in future I will probably bring just 2 or 3 and use them as a learning process and education process. But to go commercial, I don't think that land is suitable or big enough to be able to do that for it to be worth my time. At this current land, I can keep maximum maybe 5 cows on that land with proper intensive system of farming, right? But with 6 cows, will it be worth my time? And that's how I think about business. It's leverage. If I put in A, am I going to get AB? Or am I just going to get only A? Or am I even going to get less than A? And if it's not a multiplication factor, then I think it's a wrong business decision. And it doesn't matter whether you're a farmer, you're a buyer and seller, or you're an importer. It's always about what you put in versus what you get back. So cattle doing 6 cows on that kind of land is not worth my time. And that's why I think I need to explain that to most of you, to understand that you don't do farming because you have the structure, because you have the investment, or because you have some smaller. You go into the investment looking at your growth journey, and that's what I don't see on that current property. And that's why I am not going to do cattle on that land. If I do, that means that my cows will have to go out and graze, which is something that I don't want to do. The second thing that most people have added to this is sheep farming. And I do agree with you, sheep farming is something that came to mind, especially after being in South Africa and seeing all the Dopa sheep in Senegal, seeing the London sheep and stuff. I think it is appealing. I mean, attractive. I could easily bring sheep to Ghana and start a sheep farm. The issue with sheep farming is the market for me. I might be wrong. I haven't done enough research, but I don't think the demand for sheep is comparable to the demand for cow and goats. And therefore, if I could have the opportunity to do both, why would I do sheep instead of goats? I know sheep has demand at a certain times. That demand, even there, is very religious focused, right? I don't feel like I will win in that game. You choose your battles, which one you want to fight and which one you don't. I think there are a lot of my friends out there, most of you that I know at the north and even in Accra, Muslims that are doing sheep farming. I think you have your connections, you have the people you want to sell to, you have that community. I don't have that, and as a businessman, I won't risk my investment just because I have the structure to go into a market that I don't understand or doesn't even have the market understanding or audience for it. So to me, that is the number one reason why I don't want to do sheep farming. Number two, for sheep, personally, I'm not a lover of sheep. I don't even know how sheep meat tastes like. I always use this example in my videos about goat. Is when I was a kid, I remember I would go eat in a chow bar and I wouldn't even wash my hand. I would just keep my hand and just clean it, and I'll be smelling just the scent of the goat throughout the day, enjoying like the goat soup that I just had. It's something I loved. And as a farmer, it's very important for you to choose a sector based on, yes, the business, but also based on your passion. Because there are a lot of cloudy days in farming. Every change, every season comes with its own challenges. And if you're really not passionate about it, trust me, you will not survive, you will quit. And therefore it's important that I do things that I love. It's important that I surround myself with things that inspires me, that I'm excited. You guys have seen how I relate with my goats. And it's just because I love them. It's just the same thing with cows. I'm not a fan of cats, but I'm a fan of dog. The way I'll play with a dog, I will never play with a cat like that. So we gotta choose and what we do. And I think in the difficult times, it is that passion that's gonna keep me sustaining for that period. And therefore, sheep is a no for this second reason as well. People have talked about pig. Why don't you use it for pig farming? Honestly, I also don't know a lot about pig. It will be something that I will have to start to learn a lot. I know when I was in South Africa, it was actually the first time I had dedicated time to start researching about pig. So when I was in South Africa, I visited a lot of pig AI centers, I visited some pig farms, tried to understand the pig farming industry. My fear with pigs is the swine flu that comes. I think, we all know how dangerous that is. I agree, it could be prevented with the best biosecurity measures at your farm. But in our communities where people are moving, animals back and forth without proper measurements, without following the right protocols, it is difficult. I think it's a very risky business. I've been in the livestock industry to hear enough stories about how hundreds of pigs are able to be lost in such a short period. So that scares me. So even if I'm going to do pigs, I'm going to really have a lot to learn and measures to put in place. That facility might not even be the most suitable facility for me to do it. And if I'm going to do pigs too, I'm not going to keep them in a small house. I would like them to be free range as well. So all that doesn't fit into the current structure that I have there. Somebody might ask, but we saw you constructing a structure for pigs. Yes, that structure was being constructed at a very small scale just to learn. So if that learning had gone on, then maybe today I might be sitting here telling you something different. I might be thinking of, with my understanding of pigs, maybe I will now go into pigs. And unfortunately, that project was halted as well. So I do not have that understanding to be able to make that decision today. Then I think the last thing is poultry. So I have a poultry pen, and as most of you know, I actually build about 10,000 capacity of poultry farm that I can host 10,000. I built that to learn and to experiment. So I introduced chicken from Belgium, from Holland, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Ghana, and just wanted to see their productivity. Yeah, so basically that was for learning process for me to understand all these things and have that information out there for all of you. So yes, I have sacrificed a lot for the livestock industry to make sure that we are educated, to make sure that the information exists. especially for those of you living outside Ghana, where I'm very transparent with how much money I spend, how much I bought things, so that you can have that information and make the decisions for yourself. And that has been the goal, right? Why am I not going back into the poultry industry? I'm not going back because I told you this in my video when I was making the transition from poultry. I did it for 2 years. I really learned the in and out of it. I have so much data on poultry farm that I have kept, and that have informed my decision. And it's because I don't control my production costs. And production costs, specifically, what I mean is the feed. We live in a continent and a country where things can go all the way up and can come down. The fluctuation of pricing and commodities, even accessibility, is something that makes it very risky, highly risky when you do certain businesses. So if I have options and I'm not limited to one, and I'm learning and I have options to choose from, I want to consider all these things before I make a decision. And I choose not to do poultry because of the fluctuation of prices in the production cost, which is basically feed, right? So soya beans, we import, we grow some here, but sometimes you can't even get it, right? It has to be imported. Whatever is imported, you guys know the dollar rates fluctuates and controls everything, affects that. So as a farmer, budgeting and really planning the cost of that, it's not whatever I plan, it will change after a few months. I started poultry in 2 years. The price of maize was 150 cedis, right? That's about $15. Currently, the price of maize is about 750. That's $75 if you're using the rate of 10, which is even more than 10. Rate now is what, 12.6. So in 2 years, that is how fast it has grown. So as a businessman, and then I look at my end product, which is the egg. Egg is never going to increase even 100%, not even 20%, because egg as a product is a luxurious goods. It's not a commodity that if the price increases, people are still going to buy it. Or if the price increases too much, people will switch to meat, and the consumption of egg is going to come down. So at the moment, that makes that business very risky for me on a larger scale. If you're doing some small 1,000 eggs, 2,000 beds and stuff, that's fine. You can do that and feed your small market or your community. But if you're looking at me, where I want to scale and do something that is on a larger scale, then definitely I need to factor all these things into it. And I hate not to have control over my production. Even maize, I try to grow my own maize, but with the capacity of maize, I grew about 100 acres. Remember the circle land? I used all of it for maize. And I grew about 100 acres. Half of that maize ended up in the farm. Why? Because I didn't have the tools that I needed to be able to harvest this commercial level. I was relying on laborers. And the time you need them, that's when they also are tending to their small farms. So at the end of the day, you end up that when you need them for spraying, you don't have them, so your crop is going down. When you need them even for harvesting, they are also harvesting, so your crop end up in the forest and termites will eat it, right? So if you want to go large scale, it comes with a lot of challenges that we don't have. And if you don't have the capital to really buy all these equipment and build yourself to succeed, then you will fail. So again, scaling in the poultry industry was too risky when it comes to egg production. I didn't do broilers, so I don't know a lot about the meat production. I only did with eggs and decided it wasn't going to work for me at that commercial level where I see myself in the next 10, 20 years, right? Obviously, if I had the money to buy all the implement and maybe cut down some of the risks, yes, I could grow my own maize. Wheat brown. Wheat brown is not even produced here. I'm not sure. I think we import wheat brown. That means that again, prices of wheat brown can go as high as it can. Again, don't forget, it doesn't reflect in your egg production, right? So there's a lot of factors that doesn't make sense. Can I use it for like learning, research? Happy to do that, and we'll do that if that's what I want to do. But I think that is a different concept as compared to my commercial journey, right? So that's why I'm not going back to the poultry as well. But I just didn't want to do this video to answer your questions, but I also wanted to do it so that you can think about the reason why you go into farming and the risk involves and how to narrow that down and make the right business decision, right? This year, I have been saying it over and over that we need businessmen in farming. Farming is a business, and if you're not business minded, you will fail in farming. You will fail from the technical experience because you don't have the knowledge. But then running it as a business, if you're not a businessman or you don't think like a businessman, you will fail because your money will go down the drain, right? So this video is to answer that comment so that people know that I'm not doing all this because I have options. I could do this. It's not that easy to just go and jump into it. And to me, my time is even the most precious thing to me, right? So for me to leave Accra, go to Brekom, stay there, and if I'm doing 5 cows, or I'm doing something I don't enjoy, or I'm doing something that's I don't see a future in it, then really it doesn't make sense. If it's just about something small for research, then I can do it at a closer proximity where I can really give my best and have more time for it. So I hope you've taken some lessons from this. This is not to discourage anyone from going either into cattle or in pig or poultry. All what I'm telling you is you need to do your math and you need to think like a businessman to understand the pros and the cons of what you're going into, so that tomorrow you do not end up losing your investment. Because a lot of you are losing your investment into farming because you make emotional decisions, because you have a farm, because you have an uncle, because you have a nephew, and you think he's home, you say, let's start a farm. What farm? They tell you, oh, there is demand for pig, or a lot of people are asking for pigs. You go into it without even considering the cost of production, without even considering, what that demands, the size of that demand, the future of that for you. Most of you want to relocate to Ghana once you retire from abroad. Most of you want to relocate from the city and go back to your village once you're done with your work here in the city. These are things you need to consider, and that's why in the midst of all this struggle, I want to take this opportunity to share that knowledge with you guys as well, that the decisions I'm making is not just based on the emotions of losing everything, but it's also based on the future and what will be the best decision that's worth my time and profitable as a businessman. So I hope this clears that path. Thank you guys so much for the support, and we'll continue to bring you more updates as we receive them as well. We'll see you in another video.